All right.
Fun times in Cleveland again.
Still Cleveland.
Come on down to Cleveland town, everyone. Under construction since 1868. See our river that catches on fire. It's so polluted that all our fish have AIDS. We see the sun almost 3 times a year. This guy has at least 2 DUIs. The flats look like a Scooby-Doo ghost town. Don't slow down in East Cleveland or you'll die. Our economy's based on LeBron James. Buy a house for the price of a VCR. Our main export is crippling depression. We're so retarded that we think this is art. It could be worse though, at least we're not Detroit. We're not Detroit.
Welcome to the Friends, Fans, Benefits Baseball Podcast. I'm Justin Mason. That is Dave McDonald, and we are back. The season is over, but that doesn't mean fantasy baseball ends. I guess my wife tweeted out like a meme where she's like, "Oh, it's like now that baseball's over, right? You're done, right? You don't have to do anything else." It's like, oh no, not quite. Season never ends for me, baby.
Yeah, well, I think as we all found out this year, we all have quite a bit of catching up to do to fill the show to be able to be competitive next year. So better to get started sooner than later. But for me, I'm definitely taking October off and then going to reevaluate in November.
Yeah, I don't really take time off. I'll slow it down. I'll put it into kind of a lower gear per se. But I've already done a draft. I'm working on ranks. I've already finished my pitcher ranks and my catcher ranks. I'm working on hitter ranks probably after we're done talking tonight, writing articles. So things don't really slow down for me necessarily. They slow down a little bit, but gotta keep pushing along. But we're gonna keep pushing along. We're gonna keep recording hopefully every week. We had to take last week off because, as you can probably hear, there's a little echo on my mic, and that's because I'm in my office that has been remodeled. There are currently walls behind me, but that's it. There's walls and a desk. There's nothing else in here, so I have yet to soundproof it, move all the stuff back in. So hopefully the audio will be a little bit better next week, and it'll be a little bit prettier next week. Even though
the walls are very, very orange for those of you who cannot see them.
Yes, they are very orange. I'm okay with that. I like orange. Orange is good, baby. Orange is in the playoffs. Orange wins divisions.
That's true. I mean, your boys are in the playoffs, and we were just talking about that on the pre-show a little bit. So, yeah, why don't you tell the people, what are you expecting from the Giants in the postseason?
We'll get there. Do you want to do that first? Do we want to do playoff predictions first, or
No, we can move on. I was just trying to stick with the color orange there.
Let's just jump into a little bit of news. Obviously, season ending. There's not much in terms of news. Clayton Kershaw did get hurt at the end of the season. It is the left forearm tightness once again. Sounds like he may not even pitch this postseason, which is pretty scary. He's going to be – I mean, I put him on my ranks initially. He's going to move down quite a bit because if we don't get to see him pitch in the postseason and know that everything's okay, that's – he's an older pitcher. He's dealt with injuries for a long time. As far as I know, he's never had a Tommy John surgery before. But, there's a lot of mileage on that arm. I'm assuming you being as risk averse as you are, that you will not be drafting Clayton Kershaw next year if we know the kind of information we know now, which is we don't know if he's healthy or not. Yeah,
and like you said, if we're basing it on what we know now, if I were to draft tomorrow, which I won't be because I don't do that, I'm staying away. Because anytime you don't know something, like, why take the risk? There's plenty of pitchers going around where Kershaw is that I can find that I like about as much as him, and I don't have to take that massive risk. And forearm especially concerns me. And like you said, he has a long injury history. He doesn't he usually doesn't end up missing like most of the season, but he'll miss parts of a lot of seasons. And this could be something more. It could have been a lot of little things building up, and I'm not sure. So I don't expect to be on him in 2022.
Yeah, I think it's just better to probably avoid that. Like I said, he'll be in my rankings, but he will be much lower. I can maybe bring up my rankings while we're speaking, and kind of check and see where he was. I'm sure he was a top 25 pitcher for me heading into next year, considering pitched fairly well, missed a little bit of time, but not very much time this season. But my guess is he moves outside of my top 50. At least initially. Let's see. Kershaw I had at 22. So you'll most likely move outside of my top 50, probably to like the Zach Greinke area, something like that. Maybe even outside of my top 60.
Okay. That's fair.
Max Muncy also got hurt last game of the season. He has been ruled out for the wild card game and likely ruled out for the NLDS. The fact that they said he likely will be ruled out and not he is ruled out for the NLDS makes me feel like, hey, maybe there's a chance that he'll be fine by the time we get to next season. Obviously, hope we'll have more information as we start, before we start doing drafts. But Muncy had a huge season, huge bounce back year, was triple eligible, won people some leagues at his reduced price. If he's healthy, will you be back in on Max Muncy next year?
I was only in on him in Glarf because it was an OBP league. I didn't have him anywhere else, but he was great there. He did struggle a lot down the stretch, though. The last, month or so, maybe. And I don't know if the elbow injury was contributing to that or not. Obviously, with you never like to see elbow injuries in general, but it's much more concerning for me when it's a pitcher compared to a hitter. So without knowing more, and I haven't, to be honest with you, I didn't really look into this at all because, it's the end of the year. I couldn't do anything about it anyways. If I'm drafting tomorrow, I'm avoiding him. But if, I expect by March, I don't anticipate this being an issue really.
Yeah, he does lose third base eligibility next year. He'll only be first and second eligible. That's still good. He still can play in first, second, middle, and corner. He did struggle in the second half. He hit 228 in the second half. Hit 17 home runs, which is great. But, his overall line was buoyed by 19 home runs and 270 batting average at the beginning of the season. I think he kind of is who he is, right? I think he's like a 30 to 35 home run bat with like a 245, 250 batting average, which is what he did this year. He had 36 home runs, 249 batting average. I think that's what you can kind of pencil in for him. He'll be a guy that I go back to the well on as long as he's healthy. And I would assume he will be, considering, they're even talking about the fact that he might play in the postseason.
So his contact percentage and his zone contact percentage were both up like close to 4%. So it did seem like he took some strides forward this year. His max EV was at its peak as well. His hard hit rate was at its peak. His barrel percentage was at its peak. Maybe he just had a really hot first half, and then he kind of came back down to earth in the second half. He could end up being a little overvalued next year if people are, paying for the top price there. But I think he'll still be a solid contributor regardless. I would have no problem targeting him as long as he's going at a decent enough place, considering he's a guy who's not going to necessarily help you in average or steals.
Yeah, his zone contact percentage definitely came down in the second half, but it came down very little, and it was still almost 4% higher than it was in 2020 and 2019. So I think there's a lot of reasons to be very, very excited about Max Muncy next year. Maybe people will fade him. If they do, I will be getting him again on a lot of teams, and I had him on a number of teams this year. So, I'll go back to well again. That kind of covers the news. Like I said, there's not much news to cover. So let's talk about some of our leagues, right? And, obviously people don't necessarily care about our leagues in general, but Hey, I want to kind of talk about kind of maybe what we learned in those leagues. Let's start off with the Earth leagues. This is Bar for me, the Bay Area Roto Fantasy League. You're in the Great Lakes Area Roto Fantasy League. Glarf, you won the overall. I mean, congratulations! It was your first year playing in this format, which is a 5x5 roto, but with on-base percentage and quality starts as opposed to wins and average. And you not only crushed your league, you crushed everybody and took it down pretty handily.
Yeah, I guess I should be playing that format more often, eh? It was the first time I'd ever played in a league like that. Lot of different research went into it, and maybe that was part of it. Maybe I avoided kind of some of the types of players that I was taking in roto drafts that were hurting me this year in standard 5x5 leagues. But yeah, I'm really excited about the Earth League overall. Like it's going to grow. We're going to keep adding different areas of the country and other countries as well. We already have some Canadians in Glarf, and there might be some Canadian leagues popping up as well. But I really enjoy. It's a really good proving ground. Like it's a really good mix of high stakes players as well as really good fantasy analysts. And for a lot of the people I heard from who play in NFBC, they said that Glarf was by far the most competitive league that they've been in, which is really what I'm aiming for. I don't want this to be an easy league. I want this to challenge me, to challenge everybody in the league. I want, iron sharpens iron. I want this to become that prestigious league that you really, really want to win. And I'm in the process of designing this championship belt, which is odd since it's ending up being mine, but it's going to be really cool because it's going to have all of the 5 area league logos on the belt, with, of course, Glarf being the winning league in the middle of the belt. And I'm super excited for that. And I'm really just excited about where we go moving forward. And, I'm really glad that Barf started this, and then we all kind of joined up. Whether that be on NFBC next year or if we're staying with Fantrax, we haven't really decided yet. But regardless of where we end up, I'm pumped to do it again next year.
Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun next year, no matter where we're doing it. And there's been talk about a Florida league popping up, talk about a Canadian league, talk about a Texas league popping up. So hopefully people that are interested, want to start up those kind of leagues and join. And it's a ton of fun. The Barf League's been going on now for, I think this is our 4th or 5th year. I think this was our 4th year. And I need to win again because I haven't won since year 2, and I'm feeling like I need to come back and reprove myself.
I wanted to also mention we should mention some of the really cool trophies that are part of the Earth overall as well. So the Earth overall quote trophy is a WWE style title belt, which is also what Glarf is doing for ours, because the members of Glarf decided that we were going to win the overall, and so we wanted the double title, and we were right. We did win the overall, and so we do have the double title now. But I really want to highlight what some of the other leagues have done. You have the Barf bucket there, but then I forget which one it is that does the one that's that they named it after Laura Michaels.
That's the Nerf League, the New England.
The Nerf League.
They named it after Laura Michaels. The Turf League, which is the Turnpike, New York, New Jersey Turnpike area. They're naming it after Andy Spiteri, who passed away earlier this year. I believe prostate cancer. Laura passed away a few years ago. A really good buddy of mine. He was instrumental in getting the original Barf League going, because he was my first big fish that I hooked in, and it gave kind of the permission for other big name people in the industry to kind of join Barf, and without that, I don't think any of these other leagues would have popped up. So it's really cool to see some of these some of these leagues kind of honoring these guys that have passed away and that were big parts. Andy was a newer part of the industry, but a really, really, really good guy.
I heard nothing but good things about him from Matt and everybody else in that league. And Matt talked to him and then reported back to us and said that he didn't really want the trophy named after him, but we really felt like it was the right. I wasn't really part of it, but Matt and the turf league decided that it would be a good idea, and I really love that, and I love that. We're also going to be making a donation because we had everybody donate a small amount of money. Part of that goes to pay for the overall title belt, but then the rest that's left over, I will be donating to. I haven't figured it out yet, so I'm actually going to be open to ideas. I would like to do something that kind of is special to this particular industry and space. So I would love to have an open discussion about it, and I'm perfectly fine going with kind of whatever sounds like the best idea for this industry in general.
I like the idea of maybe Justin Mason's main event entry money.
No, yeah, we're not going to be taking that consideration seriously. I will say though, I am wearing the Justin Mason main event shirt, which is a lovely RotoWear shirt.
It's beautiful.
And it is the Mason face on an ambulance, which of course is fitting because his was that your first main event team?
It was my first main event team. It was my first foray into the NFBC.
And how did that go?
It did not go well at all. I think I was telling you guys yesterday when we were announcing the Earth League champions, and that I think it was before we went live, but that I worked really, really hard to not finish in dead last in the overall.
Yeah,
that's how bad that team was, and I learned a lot from it. I learned a lot from the leagues this year, but I really learned a lot from that league because I was super confident I was going to compete for the overall championship in the main event that year. And and what I said was hey, if I can just get to May, I have a real shot to win this overall. I never got to May. I spent the entire year. I lost 18 of my 30 players to the IL, and was never able to recover from that.
Well, I got a chance to see your team, and I was very confident as well. I was very confident that you stood 0% chance of doing anything in that league because you had what I call a YOLO team, which is just taking a whole bunch of high-risk players thinking, well, if the things pan out and this and that, and you learned a tough lesson in a 15-team league. And but hey, kudos to you. You've improved drastically since then.
And we got a great T-shirt out of it. So
exactly. We've all made those mistakes, man. We've all, in our past, we've all made those mistakes before.
And I'll never live it down, and that's okay. I could have a Phil type season one year, and people would still talk about that main event team. It just doesn't matter. I'll talk a little bit about my team. I finished at 6th in my league. I was outside the top 20 in the overall, so it was a disappointing season for me. Unfortunately for me, I had an imbalance in my team that I just I couldn't fix. My pitching was fantastic. I even traded away pitchers for hitters. I lost too many hitters. I had Byron Buxton.
We're talking about Barf now, right?
Yeah, this was Barf. I had Byron Buxton. I had Ozuna. I had Eloy, and I had a lot of guys who missed a lot of time. Out of my offense, and ended up trading pitching away to address that. But it took so long to get deals worked out that it just wasn't going to happen for me. I think if I had been able to, be a little bit more balanced and not take so many hits on my pitching side. Usually it's the pitching side to take the hits on,
Yeah.
But my worst pitchers prior to those trades were Kyle Gibson and Chris Flexen. Like I had a really damn good pitching staff.
Yeah, that's great.
And just could never get enough hitting. So I don't know that there's much to be learned there because, Eloy ran into a wall. I mean, I guess Buxton always gets hurt, so I should have known that was a possibility. But like Ozuna seems super safe. Eloy seems super safe. Just, it happens.
Well, and we should mention too, Buxton is a little bit better of a pick here than in a 15 team NFBC league because we have IR slots here. So now, because there's IR slots, the issue that we often ran into was there was many weeks where there was very little on the waiver wire. It was super thin constantly because people had, I think there's like 5 IR slots or something ridiculous, and it's like, people have like 4 or 5 guys on the IR, and so they don't have to make tough decisions to drop guys. So everybody's just hoarding all of these players, and there's never anything great available on the wire. So I knew from that I had to get out to a good start, and so I spent money fairly heavily right away. If I saw a piece that I thought could help me long term, I was spending on it. And so I think that kind of helped me early on. I mean, I drafted a really good team, to be fair, but and I, having like a hit like Robbie Ray late in the draft was, mega, especially pairing him with like Zach Wheeler. But at the same time, I did lose Shane Bieber fairly early on. So, it's you have to make some tough calls at points, and there were trades in this. I made a couple around the deadline, but at that point, I had already kind of cemented myself, so they helped, but I kind of already was at a point that I felt pretty good at that time.
Yeah. Let's talk about TGFBI. I had the pleasure of speaking with Tanner Bell earlier this evening and conducting a TGFBI interview. He won the overall in TGFBI, and I mean, really just had a fantastic season and pulled it out the last minute. I mean, the overall was not decided before like the last hour of the season. Like on the last day of the season, they were within half a point of each other. And actually, it changed hands. Dylan White, who works for Friends Fantasy Benefits. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
He was leading the overall yesterday, or the day before the end of the season. So,
does he have information? Is that how he did so well?
I don't know. We actually there were 2 websites that had multiple winners, league winners. One was Baseball HQ, a fantastic website that people should definitely subscribe to. And the other was Friends of Fantasy Benefits.
Hey.
We had 3 league winners. And if we add you in, right, because you won your league, right?
I did.
Technically, we've got 4 league winners.
All right. Yeah. I mean, I am Friends of Fantasy Benefits now, so yeah, that counts, right?
Yeah, so Friends of Fantasy Benefits was the best site in TGFBI this year. If you're talking about league winners, so but yeah, so you won your league. What were the lessons you learned?
Well, so I'll be honest with you. I don't ever want to say I didn't try. I tried, but I didn't do fab more than half of the weeks. I personally don't have the time management skills to do as many fab leagues as I had this year. And as I talked to you about before, for me, monetary incentive matters the most for me. I mean, sure, there's personal pride, and I wanted to do well, and I won the league. But I could have finished a lot better overall had I, made more moves far more often. Especially pitching wise, there were some weeks like I was rolling Patton, the reliever from Texas, because I had nobody else to put in there, and this was after he was no longer closing, so there was no reason for me to play him. But really, TGFBI was awesome. You did a great job organizing it. It's really cool to play against a bunch of your favorite analysts and everything. And I know you also have the the thing where you can like request to be in someone's league to go against them and everything. So I'll definitely be trying to take advantage of that next year and go against the people that I want to go against, or maybe someone will call me out. We'll see. And feel free. I will say though, there were always players available in TGFBI that were not available in my other NFBC leagues. You know, like if I'm looking for a guy in the Super and the main, he's gone, but he's still available in TGFBI. So it is definitely easier to acquire players in TGFBI compared to the other ones, but I'm okay with that. I don't need that stress in all of my leagues.
Yeah, why weren't you in the side pod?
I didn't really know about the side pod, to be honest with you. I heard about it after the season started. So was Tanner Bell in the side pod?
He was. He won the side pod, but the next two guys, Dylan White and John Fernandez, who finished second and third, were not. Mr. Draft Sheet ended up being second in the side pod, so I'm sure he's enjoying that money. You would have probably finished you would have finished in the top 10. So that you would have, I think, gotten paid.
Wow. Okay. Well, so what is the side pot? Like who puts like how much do you put in and what's the winner get?
It was $50. I can't remember what the payouts were, but I'm pretty sure like the top 8 or 9 got paid.
Okay. All right.
And NFBC comes out with the percentages. I don't know how they do it.
Okay, next year I'll definitely do that. I just did not know that was really a thing, but yeah, there's a lot of really good players up top. You know, you mentioned.
For instance, I think I finished just outside the top 100 in the overall of TGFBI, and I was 28th in the side pot.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, you were 102.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. There were only 59 people in the side pod, so
okay.
Maybe we'll get some more next year.
Maybe, and I don't know, maybe it could have just been me not seeing it or whatever, but maybe we need to promote that more because I don't know, I didn't see it, but.
Bigger news though, I beat my wife. So
to be fair, when did she stop trying?
I think she.
May?
No. I mean, she was still setting her lineups and doing fab and stuff like that, but she got a little
overwhelmed.
Not necessarily overwhelmed. I think she was a little disenchanted with the industry at certain parts.
Oh, right. So yeah.
She may continue to play like best ball or something like that, but
that's probably good.
I don't know that she's ever necessarily going to play in TGFBI again. So apparently, right. I said something not correct right there. So phrasing. I don't know what I said, but all right. I'll talk a little bit about my TGFBI team because this was a huge lesson, something I'm going to be taking into 2022 for sure. Oh, he said phrasing because I said I beat my wife. Yes, that was probably poorly said. Actually, I bested her in a fantasy baseball competition. Not. I definitely did not beat my wife. If anybody has talked with my wife, they would know that she beats me.
Physically, yes.
Yes. I definitely would not. And you can meet her if you come to First Pitch Arizona, which is in like a week. And I'm super excited because I get to meet Dave for the first time in person. And a bunch of other people who are going to be there for the first time as well. Michael Simeon, Michael Govier, and the people who have been there a few times. I get to, meet Bubba, or I've met Bubba a bunch of times, but I get to hang out with Bubba. I get to hang out with Toby.
You've met Bubba a bunch of times?
Yeah, because he's in Barf.
Oh, okay.
So I've met him at least twice before. So
fair enough.
So, and I've hung out with Toby a few times. So it's going to be a lot of fun. First Pitch Arizona. I think there's still tickets available. Definitely worth going, especially if you're in the industry. Definitely worth going. But as far as my TGFBI team goes, I had a really good team. The only problem is I could not get closers to save my life. I drafted Trevor Rosenthal.
Was that a? I feel like that was a pun.
It was not.
To save your life. Yeah.
Oh, damn! That should have been a pun. It was unintentional.
Come on.
But I could not get closers, man. It just and that crushed me in winning the league or being competitive in the league, being competitive in the overall. I spent probably close to $900 of my $1,000 fab chasing saves. And I drafted Trevor Rosenthal, I drafted Archie Bradley, I drafted Nick Whitgren, I drafted who's the guy from Texas that ended up getting hurt before the start of the season. But I drafted a bunch of guys, and none of them ended up being the closers. And I ended up just fabbing guys. By the end of the season, I fabbed Jordan Romano. Because someone had dropped him when he got hurt. I fabbed guys like Alu Trevino and Dylan Floro. But that wasn't enough to catch up. I was so far behind the 8 ball. I wasn't able to catch up in my league, or much less the overall. And so I ended up, only having 41 saves, which, if I had, gotten 30 more saves, that puts me right up in the mix with the guys who were winning my league. 10 more points and saves, and I'm in 3rd or 4th place with a chance to really, take that championship. So it's taught me that, one, while I've always been a guy that had been willing to pay for saves, I'm really going to be ready to pay for saves next year.
Well, that's the thing is, people always say in the draft they don't want to pay for saves, and I say, look, you're either going to pay for saves in the draft, or you're going to way overpay for them in free agency, and you might not even hit. So, you're paying for them one way or another. You might as well just do it in the. Do you think that anybody regrets taking, Liam Hendricks or Josh Hader over, some second-tier starting pitcher? No, they don't, because those guys give you stability. You cannot overvalue those guys. The problem with saves, and I've said this before, is people overvalue that secondary tier after the guys who are actually legitimately safe. There's these guys who Pomeranz. I saw people pushing him way up. He was never given the closer role. People were just assuming he was closer. He was never the closer. Those are the guys who make the saves category feel like you don't want to invest in it because they feel so random. They're not. The guys at the top often are safe. Now, people were drafting Karinchak way too high also, and he was also never confirmed to be the closer. And, if you followed me, we were fading him hard all along, saying, we don't think it's going to be Karinchak. He did get some saves early on, but he was not what you paid for.
Yeah. I think that, and J Hook, who won my league, Joe.
Okay.
So he's pointing out the fact that it was Jonathan Hernandez. But yeah, Chris Martin was another guy, Archie Bradley, other guys that I tried to draft, and it just didn't work out. Had I gone with Raciel Iglesias or Ryan Presley, as opposed to going with Trevor Rosenthal, I would have been in a much different situation. That's just bad luck.
Rosenthal was tough though. That was not necessarily your fault, because you did pay for saves. You just didn't realize that he was hurt.
Yeah. But had I done something like, instead of taking George Springer, who missed most of the year in the 4th round, and I had taken, Hendricks or Hader, it would have been a lot different situation. And that's something I'm going to do more often next year for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Any other lessons from TGFBI you want to talk about, or should we move on to the tag team league?
No, I think just I would say you can kind of get some really nice deals. I noticed in TGFBI, I got Altuve in the 6th and Goldschmidt in the 8th, Salvador Perez in the 7th. My offense, I'm pretty sure I had the most dominant offense in TGFBI. My pitching is the only thing that really helped me back. That was my fault for not making enough moves. But I would just say try to grab value late in TGFBI. That's the thing that I learned, at least in year 1. I don't know if it would transition to year 2, if it would work that way as well or not.
Yeah, no, I agree. All right, tag team league. You worked with your partner who you've worked with a lot, Tony.
Yeah.
I shared a league with Shelly V. You guys finished fourth. We finished fifth, so we were both just outside the money, unfortunately for us. But what were things you kind of took away from that experience?
Oh my God, what an epic collapse we had down the stretch. We were in first place with a week and a half to go, and I think we lost 10 points, I think, in the last week and a half. We had Tyler Anderson for his blow-ups, and I mean, just the one thing you cannot afford late season is to have starting pitchers that you stream. I mean, here's the thing: Tyler Anderson wasn't like some random we were streaming. Like we felt pretty good about that, and that was not, getting pounded by the Pirates wasn't something I saw coming. But that happens, and when your ratios just get tanked late in the season, you have no time to fix them. So that's pretty much just game over at that point. We drafted a little earlier. What was this? I want to say February, maybe we drafted. Does that sound right?
No, it was in March. I'm pretty sure.
Early March, because it was definitely not close.
I think it was early March. I think
it was either like the first week of March or the last week of February or something. But either way, there was a lot of closer situations that were up in the air, and so Tony and I came in.
You're right. It was February. It was February 21st.
Okay, that's what I thought. So, yeah, it was a little early where we were still trying to guess at a lot of situations, and so we came in with the strategy that we were going to fade closers early and take like 5 or 6 shots on guys and just hope that they work out, because there's a lot of information out there, and we felt like we had a good beat on it because we were listening to the beat reporters and everything, and my God, were they wrong. So the thing that I learned the most from this league actually was do not listen to beat reporters. They don't know shit. My gut told me Melanson was going to be the guy, and then that beat reporter, I don't remember, it was Dennis Lynn, came out and said, no, it's definitely Pagan. It's definitely Pagan. He was so sure about it that I dropped Melanson week 1 of Glarf before the season started.
Oh, no.
Real dumb. I mean, obviously didn't end up hurting me in the overall, but still, like, super dumb move by me. Because I had arguments with Eno about this, and I was like, no, it's not Pomerantz, it's Melanson. And then I stopped trusting myself because the beat reporters clearly know more than I do, right? I mean, that's the one thing you learn, and I still forget over time, but you learn to trust yourself and to not appeal to authority, because people are always like, well, they know more than you because that's their job. Yes and no. A lot of people are still guessing, and if it makes sense to you and you've been doing this for long enough, and they don't give you any kind of logical reasoning behind it. Like, it never made sense for it to be Pagan. I mean, Melanson has so much experience closing. Unless he's just flat out, done, dusted, they were going to go to him, and sure enough, they did. And so that was the number one thing I learned from this. Obviously, fading closers didn't work because we were last in saves, and we should have abandoned the saves a couple weeks earlier, because then we would have finished much higher in wins and Ks than we did, and we probably would have won. But we didn't make that adjustment quick enough. So those are really the takeaways for us. I know you said you might not have time for this next year. Tony and I definitely look forward to coming back and establishing our dominance next year.
Man, this was the most competitive league I think I've ever been a part of. No joke. The top 10 teams were in this up until the last month.
Yeah, I mean, within 15 points of each other. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, the difference between first and 10th was 25 and a half points.
At the end. It was closer. Yeah.
But I mean, even that's not that. It's not that huge. Like,
no.
And I mean, like, we were never able to overcome our pitching issues. We drafted Jack Flaherty and Zach Gallen, and unfortunately, just even though we got some good pitchers down, we were early on Carlos Rodon. We had drafted Dylan Cease. We sustained so many injuries, and we drafted Andrew Heaney, which was a poor choice, that we just could never overcome it. losing Brad Hand when he was traded out of Washington, and then sucked in Toronto was, awful for us as well. So, yeah, I mean, this is likely a league I'm cutting because you and I talked prior to recording earlier tonight. And I said, I just had too many leagues, especially too many FAB leagues. And this is likely one that's going to get cut for me, unless Shelly really wants to do it again. If she really wants to do it with me again, because I enjoyed working with her, and I think we worked well together. I would definitely think about it, but it's likely a cut. I'm already being talked back into it by myself.
Are you going to be able to deny Shelly if she comes to you and says, Justin, please?
Absolutely not. Shelly is an absolute stud fantasy player. It was a blast working with her. Her and I worked really well together. The hard part about working with partners is, one, I don't have a lot of experience doing it, and I tend to be a bit overbearing and stuff with partners. I tend to I like being in control. So it's
that's not what your wife says.
Yeah, no, that's I think she'd wish I would approach our sex life more like I approach fantasy leagues and be a little bit more aggressive, probably. But
okay, yeah.
With that, why don't we move on to the next set of leagues? That's our main event. I don't even know. How did you do in your main events?
So the main event was, it was relatively close for a while. We ended up in third, so we got our money back. Tony and I finished first, and third now in our three years together. So it's definitely been a successful partnership. This year, though, we had Gecko and we had, I think his name is Matthew Shepard, and they were both top 20 to 25 teams. It was just really tough to stick with them, and there was actually ended up being, I think, as much space between second and third and fourth. Like, the final week was pretty relaxed for Tony and I because we knew we couldn't get second and we knew we weren't going to move down to fourth. So, okay, looks like we were further behind second than fourth was behind us. And actually, Scott Zeidman, another really good player, ended up in fourth. He passed Matty Wood at the end. And Scott Zeidman, actually, his team name is always In Memory of Lore. So that's nice. That's nice too. The main event, if I'm being honest, I'm looking back at the draft. We just didn't draft well this year in the main. Looking at Gecko's team and looking at ours, we were just outclassed. We did really well in FAB, as we always do. Made up a lot of points there, but just too many mistakes that we will definitely be correcting moving forward with pitching evaluation mostly, and also Victor Robles. I've really come around to seeing, because I didn't know coming into this year, because StatCast kind of blew up and we didn't really know how to use it, and I thought some people were overusing it, but I think we underused it. And I think looking at the hard hit rates and everything with Robles, I thought he'd have some growth, and he could still. I think he'll be one of those post-hype guys, in a year or two down the road where people will forget about him. He'll probably suck again next year, and then like the year after that, he'll be a guy that you'll want to get back in on for super cheap, and then he'll probably do well. Because I definitely still think there's some growth there. He was a top prospect and everything, but that was a huge miss for us, and there's just too many misses. Santander just did not have the year I thought he would. Rosarena was good, but he wasn't really a superstar. I mentioned Maeda didn't pan out at all. So really going to be looking into changing my evaluation process for next year, and then hopefully that added with my roster construction and strategy skills will bring us another main event title next year.
Yeah, my two main event leagues, just too many injuries, especially in the back half of my league. And I think one of the things I'm going to take away from my main events, I think, this year is to be more aggressive in terms of the guys I'm willing to cut. One of the things that, kind of going through what Phil did this year and looking at a lot of his teams and stuff like that, he just does not care. If he doesn't think someone's producing and isn't going to start producing really fast, he kind of cuts bait. And I stuck with guys like Eugenio Suarez and Jameson Taillon, and Guys like, Ryan Yarbrough was on both my main event teams. Charlie Blackwood was on both my main event teams. And obviously, I just should have cut bait on those guys a bit quicker. It's interesting because, like, one of my weakness in one of my main event teams was my strength in the other. Like, my ERA, whip, saves, strength in one, weakness in the other. Injuries hit me hard in one, didn't hit me hard in the other. And I just finished middle of the pack in both leagues. And that's brutal, to not cash in either of those. So I'll definitely learn my lessons from there and hopefully do better next year. I think, one of the things I'm really, really looking at is I'm not doing a good enough job of accumulating at-bats and accumulating innings pitched. And that's something that, you can tell from these guys that are winning main event, leagues, winning overall titles. What they're doing is they are just accumulating a ton of innings pitched, a ton of at-bats, and I need to do a better job of that.
One of the things that Phil and I talked extensively about, not last offseason, but the offseason before, was about how people don't move on quick enough. And sometimes, granted, I think Phil moves on too quickly. He has made some bad drops with guys too quickly, but if you look at overall all the bad drops and the good drops he does, I think it definitely goes more in his favor. And you can't be afraid to drop. People are too afraid to drop guys because of name value. They're like, well, I can't drop him because it's Will Smith or whoever. Yes, you can. And like DeGrom, he was the first one to drop DeGrom, right? Like, I would have dropped DeGrom when he dropped him, but I think me and him probably would have been the only two who would have, because everyone's like, oh, but what if DeGrom comes back? What if he gets another start? What if, you can't.
What if he doesn't come back at all like he did?
Exactly. And the main thing is you cannot take zeros to hold someone. That is the one cardinal sin you cannot do. In my super at one point, I had 10 players on my team on the IL at once. I had to make cuts that I did not want to do because I knew in a couple of weeks I would hate it. But at the same time, if I don't get that production at that moment, I don't have a chance anyhow. Like, that's the thing you have to think about is maybe these guys end up coming back, maybe they end up being good, but will they be so good that it's worth taking those zeros and not getting production now on your team? And the answer is almost always take the production now. So you need to make those hard decisions. And I cut Ty France because it was either cut Ty France or cut a superstar, which I wasn't going to do. Looking back on it, I should have cut Bellinger because he was awful. But this was back in May. I was not ready to give up on Bellinger in May. Phil was, though. Phil was telling me to drop Bellinger in June or something like that. But I didn't. I should have. But you have to make those tough decisions, and you cannot take zero.
Where did you finish in that super?
Yeah. So at one point with a week left, I was 3.5 points out of first. I was after week 11. I was at 64 points, I believe, in 12th place. And since then, I came all the way back, got within 3.5 points of first, and then I had a really bad last week. And it was the last game of the year. And Eduardo Rodriguez pitched 1 inning and randomly got a save. And that knocked my competition down 0.5 point because he was tied with the guy we got a win. And he knocked the guy down 0.5 point in wins and gave me third place in the super. We were gonna be tied, and then I got sole possession of third place. So I went from winning $2,500 to $5,000. And I was down 3.5 points going into the final day, and I gained it all. And just super grateful that I was able to take that train wreck. And this is, by the way, the team that I got auto-picked. Tatis and Bellinger. And, everyone's like, oh, but you got a monster year from Tatis. It's like, yeah, but I was going to take
Bellinger.
All right, I was going to take Trey Turner. It's not a big downgrade to go from Tatis to Trey Turner. I was going to take Woodruff in the second, and that is a huge downgrade from Woodruff to Bellinger because then I tried to make up for not having a starter by then taking Maeda in the third. So it was then compounded even further. So I had an absolute train wreck of a draft, and I still managed to pull out third place. So, guys, never stop grinding. Like, do not ever give up the league. It's such a long season.
And that's one of the things I talked about with Tanner Bell about his TGFBI overall win is he got pretty much nothing out of two of his first 4 picks.
Yeah.
You know, he had Shane Bieber, who he took in the first round, and then he had Marcell Ozuna, who took in the 4th. And so, like, he didn't get anything from, or, you know, didn't get much from Bieber, didn't get anything really from Ozuna. And still ended up winning the overall title.
And that's the thing. People, you'll often hear them say things like, you can't win a league in a first round, but you can lose it. You really can't. Like,
No.
you can win. Because think about this. Like, you could have taken some guy who was a complete flop in the first round, and then, like, let's say, like, a pitcher. Let's say you took
let's say you took Yelich in the first round.
Okay, well, I was going to compare a pitcher because I was thinking of Robbie Ray. Like, if you had taken Robbie Ray late in the draft, that's like a free first-round pick right there. Then you're even.
If you had taken Cedric Mullins in
there you go.
In the last round of a lot of drafts, it's a free first-round pick. But you can overcome anything if you draft well. Like, you know, if I look at, you know, one of my main event teams, and I'm blanking on which one. You know, I had a really good draft at the start. It's the second half of my draft that I didn't get any production from it. And because I didn't move on from a lot of those guys that I didn't get any production from, I was in a really tough spot. So, you know, I mean, I had, let's see, it's my one, of course, the one I don't still have up. But, you know, you can overcome anything. Let's finish our league talk out with the last league that you and I were both in the same format, and that was the Battle of the Podcast League, where neither of us cashed. You finished 7th with your partner Jake Allister. I finished 10th with my partner, just me. I'm like one of the few people without a partner in that league, I felt like. Is your big takeaway from this? This is why you don't draft so early?
Yeah, I mean, so this one was in freaking January. I'm looking at my roster. I've got Shin-Soo Choo and Ryan Braun, so that's how early it is. Mike Soroka. I mean, I'm just simply, you know, I mean, I guess it's an excuse, but I'm not ready to draft in January. And, you know, I'm super grateful to be in this league because we have, like, the best DM thread ever with all the great people in this league. You know, we've got, you know, George and Rob DiPietro and Bubba and Toby and Michael Simeone and Matt Williams and Govier, Eric Ross. You know, it's such a great group of guys, and I really, that DM thread is invaluable. So, and it's only $50 to enter, so like whatever. But Rob just slaughtered all of us because Rob was ready in like December, and I don't think he changed much since then. And good for him. Like, he's been on a tear since last year. But nobody was really even close to him. And Bubba and Zach were up there. You know, and Zach was doing DCs in freaking October too. So like these people were just far more ready than Jake and I were at that point. I'm assuming you as well.
No, I was actually very ready. Some of my best leagues were drafts in November.
I tried to give you an out. Let that be on the record.
I won my first DC, I won my first DC and my first NFBC 50 of the year. Like those were leagues. Like I did really well in a lot of these early leagues. I just got crushed with injuries.
Well, that happens.
And it got to a point where like even the last week of the season, like I couldn't field a full lineup. Plus, I drafted Bellinger in the second round, so that of course didn't help either. So you know, when two of your first 5 picks are Luke Voigt and Bellinger, that's not going to end well for you. So
yeah.
You know, but I also like, you know, I had some you know, I also drafted Patrick Corbin. Like there's some other bad picks in this, you know, but ultimately just that one just didn't work out for me. I did fairly well in my other drafting holds, and that's definitely a format I'm going to be leaning more into next season.
The only thing that matters here is that we finished ahead of Justin, because that means that he's paying for our entrance into the league next year for free. So that's really all I care about. There's also a really good, and I'll say this because this is back towards the beginning of our friendship. You and I and Jake went on and had a little, like, because we all split up for Zach's pod, Draft Champions pod. We all like had a nemesis, I guess, and we kind of had a battle where you tried to tear apart our team, we tried to tear apart yours. I think that would be really interesting to go back and listen to because I do recall thinking like I came out of that with a lot more respect for you, and I was like, you know what, Justin was not that you like. I've been listening to Sleeper on the Bus for years. Like I've always appreciated your work, but I really was like, you know what, I think he's going to be better than I'm even expecting him to be. And he's way sharper too. And I think that was a really good discussion, and we had some really good back and forth on there. It'd be interesting to go back and listen to Zach's old pod of us kind of battling and tearing apart each other's teams to see how right we were.
Yeah, I don't know that I want to go back and listen to that. But, and I mean, here's the thing. I'll be quite honest. I kind of neglected this league. I probably would have passed you guys had I been setting my lineup properly. I'm like looking at my team right now, and I've got Bellinger on my bench, though he probably deserves to be there.
I was going to say, all I did was help your average.
I've got Wander Franco on my bench. I don't know why he's on my bench.
That's not ideal.
Davey Jansen, who had a really hot end of the season, so I don't know why he's on my – yeah, so clearly I did – and this is one of the things that you and I talked about, that I do need to change is I played in 29 leagues this year, not including like best balls and stuff like that.
Right.
And clearly I was in too many leagues. And it cost me because there's just only so much you can focus on at one time. I don't know how Zach Waxman does it with 75 leagues or however many he's in it because he did really well this year. Won an overall title. Congratulations, buddy. Did really, really well in a lot of other leagues.
Super impressive year.
Very, very impressed by him. But I don't know how he does it. I'm going to be cutting back to at least 27 leagues.
Zach's a freak of nature. I don't think any of us should compare ourselves to him. He's a goddamn unicorn, and I don't know how he does this with a family. I have no idea. He has a kid. He has a wife. I don't know how and a job, I think. I don't know how he has the time to do this shit.
I assume he has a job because I don't know how he's paying for all those entries.
No, he does. He has a job. I mean, at least he did, unless he retired. I don't know, but
maybe he made enough this year he can retire. So
I mean, this was his big season. I mean, I said before, like he had the most impressive turnaround from the time I met him until this year. Like he has grown the most I've ever seen someone grow in such a short period of time. It makes me scared to think how much better he could potentially be even next year.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. All right, let's move on away from our leagues and talk about some of the lessons learned that we haven't talked about yet. I want to focus first on kind of what we didn't know coming into this season was short, kind of based on 2020 short season, right? We had never gone from 60 games to 162 games. What did we learn, in that process, or just about baseball in general? We had the sticky ball situation. We had the dead ball. We had we had all these kind of weird different things that kind of affected the way we were going to play the season without actually knowing how it was going to affect.
Yeah. All of the, I always talk about how I love all the complexities within fantasy baseball, like all the things that people hate. They're like, oh, I wish there was no steals and no saves, and I can just draft all the guys with the nicest pitches and who just hit bombs. And it's like, no, that's part of the complexity of the game. That's what makes it great, because you have to make sacrifices in certain places, and there's a lot of strategy that goes into that. What I don't like is I don't like that everybody just doesn't have the same ball. I don't like the humidor. I don't like all the stuff that I can't control and I don't know about. Like was the ball different this year? Was it not? I don't know. There's so many articles saying one way or the other. Honestly, Justin, I don't know anything when it comes to the ball. I just try to negate it out as much as possible. So obviously I feel like this was one of my worst years in terms of player evaluation, police act. But other guys too. And I think a lot of that was coming off of the short season. And Phil kind of warned me, when he was optimizing system for the year. This is why he thinks that he's not going to have another year like this year, because he thinks that most people didn't properly account for 2020 the way that they should have. Because I think he said it was something like 70% 2019, 30% 2020, something like that. That you should have been looking at in terms of how much of it to take into consideration. Because, real growth happened and real regression happened in 2020. But separating that out is incredibly difficult because you've got a small sample. Like, guys can get hot for a month or two, and that's all the season was 2 months. And guys can just have an extended hot streak, they can have an extended cold streak. Like, I was looking at Max Muncy. We were talking about him before. In 2020, he hit 192. Does that mean that, all of a sudden he's a 192 hitter? Well, probably not. He had a 203 BABIP, so pretty safe to say that it was going to go back up, and it did. He hit 250 this year. I think people didn't know how to properly account for that. I did to an extent, but not enough. I didn't take 2020 out of the equation enough that I should have. And I think Phil thinks that now that we've had a regular year, it's going to be tougher for him to have an edge going into next year. And I do feel much more confident in my player evaluation going into next year after having this year. But it's been a really difficult transition from the 2 month stretch to this. How do you think you fared with that?
I think I probably fell into the trap that a lot of other people did and overweighted 2020.
Yeah.
There are definitely guys who are. I was in on Max Muncy. I saw that. That he was. It was a short sprint, right? It was 60 games. There's so many players this year that if you had cut them after their first 60 games, you would have just been absolutely kicking yourself. Or if you just took out a random 60 game sample out of the year, because it wasn't even like, we were dealing with like 60 games at the beginning of the season, right? This was 60 games from end of July through September. So it's such a random sample that obviously we overrated it. I think this is a season like any other. I'll be interested to see if we get any information about what they're going to do with the ball next year, right? Are they going to liven the ball back up? Or are they going to allow pitchers to use some sort of substance, some agreed upon substance coming in? Will we have a shortened season next year because of CBA problems? There's a lot of questions that may be up in the air kind of coming into 2022 that can complicate things again. I agree with Phil that he's never going to have another season like this because I just think I think the stars aligned. It's so hard to do this, right? Do I think he could win another overall? He's clearly the best player on the planet right now. I think he could win another overall. I think he could become the second person to win 2 main event overall titles, just because he is clearly really, really good at this, really, really good at canceling the noise that a lot of us can't cancel quite as easily. So, can he repeat this? It would be really, really difficult to. But if anybody can, I think Phil can.
Yeah, he's definitely he's that goal that we now all strive for. And I will always, put myself up against anybody at any time. Do I want Phil in my leagues? No, especially because we talk so much. But I'm not. If he's in my league, he's in my league. I'll still bet on myself because I know the work that I'm going to put in the off season. But automating the process is going to be key, and that's what Tony and I are working on this off season because. And I've been wanting to do that since before Phil and system, but I knew he was going to have a season like this. I've been talking to him for 2 years now. I know how brilliant he is, and I knew it was just going to because he can go back and back test stuff, so he knows what statistically significant changes he can make in his system, which is really cool. I don't know how to make a model, so we'll have to see what we can come up with. But it's going to be interesting, and I'm still going to always put myself against you, Phil. So let's go next season.
Yeah, unless he shows up to New York and ends up in one of those main events. He does.
Well, he did last year, or no, he didn't go last year because of COVID, but 2 years ago he drafted out of New York, right? Yeah.
I don't know if he was there or not.
In 2019 he drafted in New York. I know that. I don't think he went last year because he sent Rob as his proxy to do like the auction and everything.
Right.
So I think he did online mains, and I think he had Rob do the auction as his proxy. But I think he's trying to go to Vegas next year, so he will be there with us.
Well, I would be happy if he went to Vegas and decided not to go to New York, because I won't be at Vegas. I'll just be at New York. So.
He could do both. I mean, they've got 2 weekends, so he could do both.
Well, and he did just win like $225,000.
He has the means. Yes.
So I think he can afford to take 2 weekends off, and
I think his girlfriend will let him now. I don't think that'll be a concern.
Yeah, I think when you win that much money, it takes a little bit of the pressure off.
I would say so.
But congratulations to Phil. I don't know if he's going to listen to this or not, but
I'll let him know that we talked about him. He might listen.
He's a hell of a player, and well deserved.
Great guy, very humble. No, people say that a lot. He can be, but he can also be a cocky dick too. I love that guy, but he can be cocky for sure.
If you have that many first places, you're allowed to be cocky.
Yeah, for sure.
Just go ahead.
Still super happy for him though. He's a good friend, and it's really cool to see what he did. But it really just motivates me to want to do that too.
Absolutely. What did you miss personally this year that like you're gonna now incorporate into your drafts next year? Like I've already talked about, like the leagues that I really struggled in, saves were an issue for me. Speed was an issue for me in one of my main events. I ended up having to punt stolen bases to try to obviously being in one of Phil's leagues was an issue for me. The league he finished overall. I will definitely avoid that next year if I can. But what were some of the things that you kind of learned from your leagues this year that you're going to incorporate in your drafts next year?
Yeah, well, you know how I feel about steals. I always make sure I get my steals early in the draft. I really think I've decided unless there's a healthy version of DeGrom available in the first round, I'm going hitter to start. I kind of went back and forth on that last year. I kind of got convinced that taking pitchers in the first was. And I'm not saying it's not like it's not that you can't win. I'm just talking about like what I think is the optimal path, and I don't think it's starting with pitching. I think Rob Silver put out a tweet recently, something about out of the top 25 starters off the board or something, like 14 were busts or disappointments or something. I can't remember exactly what it was. I should have had that ready before this, but it's a large portion of starters miss. And I think what I want to do is make sure I get those 5 category hitters early. In my first 4 picks, I basically think I want to get 2 hitters, the closer, probably in the 4th, and then 1 ace that I feel good about. But I really want to pound those middle rounds where I take a lot of shots on those great stuff, high upside starters, because you get even a couple of those, even 1 or 2 to hit, and you're pretty money there. I got to see where guys are going before I can even say. I think the early returns on where Trevor Rogers is going really intrigues me. But yeah, in terms of what I've missed, it's basically just my player evals coming off the short season, going into 2021. We're off, and I'm going to be incorporating a lot more StatCast, and I have a list of all the stats that I want to follow, and I'm making Tony is a spreadsheet wizard, so I'm having him make a very detailed spreadsheet that we can use in the off-season prep and then in season as well, because a lot of the stuff I just don't pay enough attention to because it's so much work to continuously do this. Like what Phil has the advantage of is he makes the spreadsheet, he refreshes it, takes a couple minutes to refresh with all the formulas in it, but then he has all the information in front of him that he needs, and it gives him a number. I'm not going to be able to build a model like he is, but if I have that information in front of me, I'm going to be a lot better of a player next year. So that's what I'm looking forward to not missing on next year.
Well, I mean, Phil is a big proponent of taking pitching early. I mean, he in the main event he was in with me, and I have that board because he was in it with me. He went pocket aces. And this is the league where he finished third overall. He went Bauer, Walker Buehler. So he even lost his first round pick in Bauer, and still was able to dominate. God, I'm looking at this team and I'm like, how did he win the overall? Because he churned and burned shit. That's how he did it.
It's a viable strategy. I'm not saying you can't win starting pocket aces. I just think for me, I don't think that's the route that I'm going to go. Unless there's a dominant pitcher like a healthy DeGrom. That's the one. Because I don't think Cole is that guy. I mean, he's good, but I don't think he's not DeGrom healthy good.
And we saw in one of these early DCs that are happening right now that some people are putting together. We saw Scherzer go first overall. I couldn't do that.
No way. Not for me.
I love Scherzer, but I don't know that I could take him in the first round, much less first overall.
No, it's not the way I'm going to go. I mean, again, if it's all in how you feel comfortable, what your strategy is, and how you're going to construct your roster. And for me, it's not going to be that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's do some playoff predictions and finish.
All right.
That.
Okay.
So let's start with the wild card games. Start with American League wild card. We have Boston versus New York, the Yankees. Who do you think wins that game?
Do we know who's starting that game yet?
I was literally just about to check that. I think it's Cole. I want to say, or no, I think they said that Cole's not going to start it. I think they're setting up for the first game of the NLD or the ALDS. Cole Eovaldi.
So, for those of you who can't tell, because obviously we're seamless in our transitions here, Justin and I wrote a couple of notes like literally 30 seconds before we got on there. So, sorry about this. But, yeah, Cole versus Eovaldi. I hate the Yankees, but I got to go with them there.
Yeah, I think the bullpen is just so much better. If it gets into the bullpen, and not that the Yankees bullpen is good or anything, but I think it's better than Boston's. And not having JD Martinez because he's injured, likely going to miss the wild card game. I think hurts Boston as well. I'll be rooting. Actually, I don't care who wins this game. I really don't.
I hate both of them.
I want to see Toronto or Seattle make it, and I'm glad that we didn't get either of those. So, I'm going to go Yankees, but like I said, couldn't care less, really.
Fair enough.
Let's see. St. Louis versus the Dodgers.
Yeah, this is really interesting because we were talking about this before. Like, Scherzer's kind of faded a little down the stretch, and Wainwright is still going real strong. And I don't know. I just have a feeling like the Cardinals are going to pull it out, even though like my head is telling me it's LA. Like LA's offense, Corey Seager is just crushing right now. Trey Turner too. I mean, I'm concerned about the Cardinals' offense is the main thing. I just feel like Wainwright can keep him in it, but I don't know. I think I'm just gonna have to go with the Dodgers. I know I said Cardinals earlier, but it's that offense is so good, man.
Yeah, it's so hard because I think that the Dodgers are clearly the better team on paper, but the Dodgers have been dealing with injuries left and right. They're not gonna have Muncy for this one. And Chris, while they've had guys like Seager get hot, Chris Taylor's been atrocious as of late. I think the Cardinals are just so hot. I'm gonna say the Dodgers too. I prefer to see the Cardinals win, being a Giants fan. But I think the Dodgers pull this one out. Though like I said, I think it could go either way, honestly.
Fair enough.
Let's talk about the division series as well. Houston versus Chicago. I'll go first on this one. I think Houston is the best team in Major League Baseball, so I'm picking them. to win the American League. So I'm definitely picking them to win this matchup here.
Yeah, I can't disagree. It doesn't feel like, I mean, the White Sox, easily won the, the Central, but I don't know. I don't feel like they're at their, I don't know if they're at their peak form right now, but I just feel like the Astros are too good. And I hate the Astros, and I want them to lose too. But I hate the White Sox too, so I really just don't like any of these AL teams, if we're being honest. Yeah, I'm gonna pick the Astros to win that.
All right. Then we have the Rays versus, we're going to say the Yankees, because we're both picking the Yankees.
Right.
Do you think the Rays, or do the Yankees or Boston, if the Boston wins the wild card game, either of them have any shot against the Rays, you think?
They've got a shot, but not a great one, because this is going to be, Tampa's got home field advantage. Their pitchers are just locked down at home. It's not a good offensive environment. The Yankees really rely on the home run ball, and even in New York, like Michael Wacha was shutting them down. I just don't have any confidence in New York being able to win that series. So I'm definitely taking the Rays.
Yeah, I'm taking the Rays as well, just because I think the Rays are built for a short series. Like the Rays have, such a good bullpen mix. They have enough starting pitchers to get through a 5-game series. I think the Rays win pretty handily against either whatever team comes out of the wild card. What about on the National League side? We've got Milwaukee versus Atlanta.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting one. I'm assuming it's going to be Morton and Woodruff to start it off.
Yeah, that'd be my guess.
I think I'm going to take Milwaukee here. I mean, with Woodruff, Burns, and Peralta all being able to go full bore, I love Morton. He was great for me in the Super League. But, I feel like Milwaukee's got a better offense, and I think they've got better starting pitching as well. I think they both have pretty good bullpens, although losing Devin Williams is a sizable blow for the Brewers, but I'm still going to take them to win the series.
Yeah, I think Milwaukee wins this series. Honestly, I think Milwaukee should be the favorite to come out of the National League. I love the top of that rotation with Woodruff and Burns and Lauer, and I think that their bullpen is very good as well. I think their offense can do just enough to make them competitive, especially with that great pitching kind of holding down other teams. So I think Milwaukee beats Atlanta. And then last but not least, my San Francisco Giants versus, we're going to say the Dodgers, but it could be the Cardinals. Who knows?
This is I really want to take the Giants, honestly, but my concern is, if Belt were still healthy, because he was basically their best hitter down the stretch. Losing him was huge. I don't know, like their offense just didn't seem like it was clicking as well without him. Wade seemed to be fading a bit at the end. I would also feel a lot better if Gausman had a good final start. And I forget exactly what it was, but I don't remember it being particularly good. Let's see. It was, maybe it was. Okay. Never mind. He had 2 really good starts in a row. I think that could end up being pretty big for them, because coming in, it was pretty much Logan Webb who kind of started to look a little more human towards the end. It was Logan Webb and Gausman, and then like DeSclafani and maybe Wood. I don't know if they're planning on starting Wood or not. The Dodgers have a lot more. I'm more confident, and well, they're without Kershaw too, so.
And they're using Max in the wild card game, so he won't be available to pitch 2 games of that series.
It's very true.
I think my Giants are going to take this.
I think they could. Urias and Buehler are both pitching really well right now, though. It's going to be close, man. I'm going to go with the Giants as well, though.
Yeah, I'm going to be a homer and say the Giants win.
As you should.
What's your World Series pick?
My World Series pick from the NL will be, I believe I'm going to go with the Brewers.
Okay. I'm going to go with my Giants just because I'm a homer.
I could easily. I don't think that's a homer pick at all. I could easily see it going that way.
The Giants are a team that I think are built for a 7-game series. They're really deep. They're not overpowering. And if they lose in a short series, it would not necessarily surprise me. But I think ultimately I think they're the deepest team in baseball right now. They're not the most talented, but they're deep as fuck. And
they are.
Yeah, I think they have a real shot to get there. In the American League, I'm going, like I said, with the Astros. I think the Astros win it all, honestly. I think the Astros are the best team in baseball. And, obviously any team can get hot. If the Giants have taught me anything, being a Giants fan, because they were not the best team in 2010. They're not the best team in 2012. They were not the best team in 2014. Yep. The best team does not necessarily win the World Series every year. And so I think any team can win it. But if I'm going to say the best team's going to win it, then the best team is the Astros.
I'm right with you, unfortunately. I wish we could disagree more here, but yeah, I'm of the same mind. I think Houston is the one team that matches up well with the Rays. Like, they're the team that can hang with them with good pitching and even better hitting. So I mean, the Rays will have home field advantage, but I think Houston can overcome that pretty well. So yeah, I'm gonna take Houston versus the Brewers, whereas you'll have Houston versus the Giants, and then we both have Houston winning it all. Well, I mean, I don't know. I guess what's your official pick?
Yeah. I've got Houston beating the Giants, but I will be happy for the Giants to upset them.
You'll be okay if you get that wrong. Yeah. And I mean, I don't want Houston to win either. Give me anyone from the NL other than the Dodgers winning it, and I'm happy.
Yeah, that sounds about right. So, yeah, I definitely want the Giants to win, but first and foremost, I don't want the Dodgers to win. So,
fair enough.
All right, Dave, where can people reach you on Twitter, and what are you working on? Are you working on anything? Or are you just taking time off?
Well, I said I'm taking like the next month off from like really diving into player analysis, but I do plan to start getting back into writing. So I'm hoping to put some stuff out, but I feel like every time I say that I don't. So, but that is the plan. I'm taking care of my grandmother a good amount these days. We're kind of performing family in-home hospice for her. So kind of between me and my parents and my aunts and uncles, we're all taking turns staying with her for a couple days here and there. So haven't had as much free time lately, but still planning to do some writing in my free time. But you can definitely reach me at RunDMcD on Twitter, add that D, and I'm always happy to talk baseball with you guys. And thank you guys for all the great DMs of support and telling me how much I helped you guys this year. Like, that's what makes it all worthwhile for me. That's what drives me to put stuff out to help you guys and to answer your questions. Is then you guys telling me like, hey, I won my league. Like, that's really cool for me to hear. And even if I'm just a small part of that, that really drives and motivates me.
Absolutely. You can reach me on Twitter at Justin Mason FWFB. You can email me or the show, friendsoffantasybenefits@gmail.com. You can read my stuff over on Fangraphs, friendsoffantasybenefits.com, and TGFBI. I will be writing pretty close to daily through the off season at Fangraphs. So, and I'll also be talking to the staff and see if whether or not we're going to put out a Friends of Fantasy Benefits draft guide again. I'm sure we will. It was award-nominated last year. So definitely get that if we do decide to do that. And other things coming down the pike as well. There's a TGFBI podcast coming out tomorrow. So probably about the same time as you're able to listen to this. That'll be available. I talked with Tanner Bell for about 30 minutes, kind of discussing his championship in TGFBI. And then I'll also be recording a podcast with Paul tomorrow for Sleep and Bust. So you can check out all that stuff. For Dave and myself, thank you for listening, and I leave you with this.
Fun times in Cleveland again.
Still Cleveland.
Come on down to Cleveland town, everyone. Under construction since 1868. See our river that catches on fire. It's so polluted that all our fish have AIDS. We see the sun almost 3 times a year. This guy has at least 2 DUIs. The flats look like a Scooby-Doo ghost town. Don't slow down in East Cleveland or you'll die. Our economy's based on LeBron James. Buy a house for the price of a VCR. Our main export is crippling depression. We're so retarded that we think this is art. It could be worse though, at least we're not Detroit. We're not Detroit.
Thank you, everyone.